In the heart of Kenya's savannah, some moments in the wild are so rare they defy belief. After 16 years as a ranger, Daniel Matthews thought he had seen it all, until a pregnant lioness went missing and the pride led him to a secret no human had ever witnessed before. What happened next would change everything he knew about lions. Stay with us as we follow Daniel on this once-in-a-lifetime encounter. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below to share your thoughts on this extraordinary moment in the wild. The first light of morning stretched lazily across the Mara North Conservancy, turning the vast savanna into a canvas of gold and amber. Daniel Matthews adjusted his hat and squinted at the horizon, the crisp dawn air still carrying a faint chill from the night before. At 5:47 a.m., he checked his watch again. For 16 years, these early hours had been his closest companions, and Daniel knew that predator activity peaked now, lions returning from nocturnal hunts, hyenas retreating into shadows, and the ever-watchful eyes of leopards scanning the grasslands. He eased his Land Rover along the familiar rutted track, careful not to jolt the vehicle. Months of study had taught him that even a slight misstep or unexpected sound could send a pride scattering. Ahead, the grass swayed gently in the breeze, hiding the pride he had been monitoring for the past 3 weeks. He stopped the engine and raised his binoculars, scanning the figures he knew intimately. The dominant male with the scar across his muzzle, 3 adult lionesses moving gracefully, and 2 nearly grown cubs with amber flecks in their eyes that mirrored Nala's own. Though the pregnant female, the one he had named for her unusual amber gaze, was nowhere to be seen. Something felt off. A prickling unease ran down his spine, a subtle warning Daniel had learned to trust over the years. Nala had been due for her first labor any day now, and her absence in the morning light was not just unusual, it was concerning. He picked up his radio and prepared to log the observation, but a low, strained growl carried across the savannah before he could speak. It was not the playful growl of cubs or the threatening snarl of a predator. It was raw, primal, urgent. Daniel's years of experience brought clarity instantly. He recognized the sound as distress. The male lion perked his ears, swiveling toward the signal, muscles tensing beneath his tawny fur. Without warning, the pride began to move, every step purposeful, every head aligned toward a cluster of acacia trees 200 yards east. Daniel hesitated, the familiar protocol echoing in his mind. Never follow a pride on foot, but instinct overrode caution. Something extraordinary was unfolding, and the ranger could feel it in the rhythm of the land, in the subtle shift of the wind carrying the scent of urgency. He grabbed his camera, radio, and emergency kit, stepping lightly from the Land Rover, using it as a shield while maneuvering closer. The grass seemed taller now, every stalk a challenge to visibility. He moved with patience, relying on his intimate knowledge of the terrain, tracking the occasional flash of tawny fur or the movement of a tail. Time stretched as the pride advanced, their motion both elegant and purposeful, a choreography honed by generations of survival. After 15 tense minutes, Daniel crested a small rise and froze. In a clearing beneath the sprawling arms of an acacia tree lay Nala, her sides heaving with contractions. The translucent membrane of the amniotic sac protruded slightly, glistening in the early sun. Around her, the pride arranged themselves in a protective semicircle. The male lion positioned strategically, directly facing Daniel as if drawing an invisible line. His heart pounded, throat dry as he lifted his camera. 16 years in the field had yielded countless observations, hunts, confrontations, playful cub interactions, but nothing prepared him for this. A lion birth in the wild, witnessed without endangering the animals or himself, was almost mythic in rarity. Daniel could feel the weight of history pressing down with the warm sunlight, every detail vivid, the soft rustle of grass, the mother's strained breaths, the way the other lionesses moved closer in solidarity. He dared not speak. Any sound could trigger disaster. Each contraction made Nala growl softly, the sound resonating deep in the chest of the male lion, who continued to hold his ground. And then something even more remarkable occurred. The dominant male's gaze locked with Daniel's, a silent negotiation passing between species. It was not aggression, it was acknowledgement. A boundary had been established. Observe, but do not cross. Daniel exhaled slowly, eyes watering at the beauty of this communication. The first cub emerged after 30 intense minutes. Nala's instincts were flawless. She immediately removed the amniotic sac and began licking the wet newborn, stimulating its first breaths. Tiny and fragile, the cub squirmed weakly against its mother's tongue. Daniel captured every moment, each photograph a testament to patience and trust, each frame an invitation into a world most humans would never witness. Before the morning could fully unfold, a second bulge appeared, heralding another cub. Twins. Only a fraction of lion births, approximately 11%, resulted in twins, and Daniel watched, entranced, as Nala delivered with methodical precision. The second cub, slightly more vigorous, joined its sibling under the protective gaze of the pride. The other lionesses, now close but respectful, circled to observe and support the mother, noses touching gently in what could only be described as a congratulatory ritual. Every action, every subtle movement told a story. The male lion occasionally shifted, placing himself strategically to maintain the boundary while offering protection. Daniel noticed a pattern, an unspoken understanding that he was part of the scene, but only as a witness. His hands ached from gripping the camera, legs stiff from crouching, but the thought of interrupting this delicate balance never crossed his mind. Nature was showing its rawest face, and he was fortunate enough to be permitted a glimpse. The sun rose higher, illuminating the pride and casting long shadows across the grass. Every blade, every flick of a tail seemed to vibrate with life. Daniel whispered into his camera microphone, documenting meticulously, aware that this footage could redefine human understanding of lion behavior. Typically, mothers would hide newborns in dense cover. Yet here, in open savanna light, they thrived, nurtured by pride members while tolerating a human presence, a phenomenon virtually unheard of in field research. Despite the serenity, tension lingered. Daniel's mind calculated risks, tracking the male's posture, noting each subtle shift in attention, ready to deploy deterrent spray if needed. Yet the lion did nothing aggressive. Instead, it maintained vigilance, a guardian silently sanctioning his observation. It was a paradox of trust, one forged not by words but by weeks of coexistence, careful patience, and mutual recognition of boundaries. Minutes stretched into hours as Daniel remained, documenting the first fragile moments of life, the birth of the twins, and the subtle communications of the pride. He recorded every detail, aware that each click of the shutter was a bridge between human curiosity and wild instinct, a rare merging of worlds normally separated by fear and survival. As the morning deepened, he felt a surge of gratitude for the opportunity to witness such a pristine moment. There was exhilaration, yes, but also humility. He realized that being present here, observing with respect and caution, allowed a rare window into nature's rhythm, a reminder that humans need not dominate every encounter with wildlife, but could sometimes exist as silent participants in extraordinary events. And as the sun climbed, warming his back and the savanna around him, Daniel Matthews understood that this dawn, this rare and sacred birth, would remain etched in his memory forever, a testament to patience, respect, and the profound mysteries of life thriving under the African sun. The clearing beneath the acacia tree was bathed in golden light as the morning deepened, each sunbeam revealing the intricate ballet of life unfolding. Daniel Matthews crouched a safe distance away, heart hammering in his chest as he watched the laboring lioness, Nala. Her sides heaved rhythmically, muscles straining with the effort of giving life. The first cub, slick and trembling, struggled weakly under her gentle but commanding guidance. Every lick she administered was deliberate, an instinct honed over countless generations, and Daniel documented each motion with reverent precision. He knew in his 16 years as a ranger, he had never witnessed anything like this, an intimate glimpse into the raw power of life in the wild. Around Nala, the pride maintained a perfect semicircle. The male lion, massive and imposing with his scarred muzzle, kept his gaze fixed on Daniel intermittently, a silent sentinel ensuring that boundaries were maintained. There was tension in the air, yet it was calm, controlled. The other lionesses moved closer to the mother in subtle gestures of support, noses brushing, tails flicking gently. A social choreography Daniel had only read about in studies, but never seen enacted with such clarity. Even the older cubs stayed a cautious distance away, their curiosity tempered by instinctual respect for the mother and her vulnerable newborns. Minutes passed, each tick of time stretching into eternity. Daniel's lens captured the first breaths, the tentative attempts at movement, and the instinctive licks of a mother lion teaching life from the very first moment. Then, a second bulge appeared. Twins. The second cub emerged more swiftly, aided by Nala's experienced movements. Daniel's pulse quickened, not only because of the rarity of twin births, which occur in roughly 11% of lion deliveries, but because of the extraordinary calm with which the pride accepted the situation. The male lion's vigilance never wavered, yet he made no aggressive moves. His presence seemed to communicate a singular message: observe, but do not interfere. Daniel lowered his camera for just a moment, letting his eyes drink in the scene. The mother immediately turned to the second cub, removing the translucent membrane and licking it clean. It squirmed against her fur, tiny and fragile, yet already asserting life. Both cubs, barely the size of small domestic cats, began weakly seeking nourishment. Nala's patience was infinite. Every movement, every adjustment of her body provided warmth, security, and guidance. Daniel marveled at the precision of instinct, the meticulous care that transcended mere survival and revealed a sophisticated understanding of nurturing, survival, and social dynamics. The male lion shifted, eyes briefly narrowing as Daniel adjusted his position. Time seemed suspended. Daniel knew one wrong step could transform this delicate observation into a deadly confrontation. Yet the lion did not move aggressively. Instead, there was what Daniel could only describe as acknowledgement, an unspoken agreement that he was tolerated, even if not fully welcomed. He whispered softly into his microphone, documenting meticulously, describing the sequence of events, the behaviors, and the extraordinary lack of hostility from the apex predator. Around the mother, the other lionesses subtly repositioned, ensuring their semicircle remained unbroken, guarding the newborns while allowing Daniel to observe. It was a paradoxical harmony. Life teeming in the open, vulnerable yet protected, wooed yet almost ceremonial. The subtle communications among the pride were astonishing. Nose touches, shifts in posture, flicks of the tail, and brief vocalizations all conveyed a complex social understanding. Daniel realized he was witnessing a level of intelligence and social coordination that challenged what he thought he knew about lions. The morning sun climbed higher, and Daniel felt its heat pressing down, a reminder that even in this miracle, the harsh realities of the savannah remained. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he adjusted his camera lens, trying not to draw attention. He whispered updates into his radio, careful to describe the scene accurately for his research team. Nala continued to care for both cubs, ensuring they were warm, clean, and feeding properly. She rotated her body delicately to accommodate both infants, a dance of maternal instinct that seemed almost choreographed for Daniel's benefit. What astonished Daniel most was the male lion's behavior. At intervals, he would rise, stretch, and reposition himself strategically, not in aggression, but in protection. At one point, he even walked a few paces toward Daniel before settling back into a position that gave him shade from the sun while keeping a clear view of his family. The gesture defied all traditional interpretations of lion behavior. Typically, human presence near birthing mothers would trigger a flight response or outright hostility. Yet here, the pride tolerated Daniel's observation as if he were a silent observer sanctioned by the natural order itself. Time blurred as the twins took their first tentative steps under their mother's supervision. Nala's licks and careful nudges encouraged mobility and strength, while the older cubs watched, mimicking yet respecting boundaries. The second lioness nudged the mother gently, then sat back, eyes scanning for threats. Daniel documented each interaction, understanding that this was not merely a birth, but a profound insight into lion social structures and human-wildlife dynamics. He captured the subtle ways the pride managed vulnerability, distributed responsibility, and communicated nonverbally in ways no textbook could fully convey. As the morning deepened, Daniel realized he had lost track of time. His water supply was low, legs cramped from crouching, and his stomach a dull reminder of hunger. Yet none of these distractions could pull him from the scene unfolding. He observed Nala's tail flick as she nudged one of the cubs toward her nipple, then watched the male lean slightly, shading part of the clearing from the sun, ensuring that all newborns remained protected. Daniel whispered into his microphone, narrating the miraculous dual birth and emphasizing the extraordinary cooperation and tolerance displayed by the pride. Even as his resources dwindled, the ranger felt a profound sense of connection. It was not the human connection of touch or speech, but a shared acknowledgement of presence and purpose. Each lion seemed aware, in their own way, that Daniel posed no threat. He could study, record, and learn from them while maintaining safety for himself and the pride. The entire scene was a testament to the subtle intelligence of apex predators and the potential for cautious human coexistence in the wild. For nearly an hour, Daniel captured every interaction, every sound, and every gesture. The pride's behavior remained calm yet vigilant, protective yet non-aggressive. Occasionally, Nala would pause to glance toward him, then return her attention to the cubs, demonstrating awareness without hostility. Each observation was a revelation. The twins thrived under maternal care. The pride provided unspoken guidance, and Daniel existed in a state of mutual respect with a species known for its lethal capabilities. As the morning began to wane, the sunlight deepened, turning the savanna a richer gold. The twins now nursed actively, their small bodies trembling with energy and life. Daniel adjusted his position once more, careful not to disturb the intricate balance he had witnessed for hours. He realized that these moments, rare, fragile, and fleeting, were shaping his understanding of wildlife forever. The pride, the newborns, and the cautious observer were bound together in a silent contract. Life must be protected, witnessed without interference, and respected above all else. At that moment, Daniel understood something profound. Observation was not domination. Presence did not necessitate control. The lions, in their own way, had allowed him to participate in a miracle of life, granting a rare window into nature's most intimate act. His camera continued to click. His notes grew ever more detailed, and his mind etched each second, knowing that the story he was documenting would not only redefine perceptions of lion behavior, but also the delicate balance of trust between humans and apex predators. The savanna had grown warmer by mid-morning, its golden light stretching shadows across the gently swaying grass. Daniel Matthews remained crouched beneath the sparse shade of an acacia, every muscle tensed yet deliberate in movement. He had long since learned the importance of patience, but nothing in his 16 years as a ranger had prepared him for the extraordinary dynamic unfolding before him. The pride, the dominant male, the protective females, and the newborn twins was behaving in ways he had never observed. Despite the inherent danger, a curious sense of trust had formed, fragile yet tangible, between him and the apex predators before him. The male lion, enormous and regal, remained an ever-present sentinel. At intervals, he shifted slightly, realigning his massive body to maintain sight of both his family and the lone human observer. Daniel realized this was no ordinary tolerance. The lion's behavior indicated understanding, a recognition that Daniel intended no harm. Yet the predator's gaze was unwavering, a constant reminder of the precarious balance of life and death on the savanna. Every movement, every adjustment had to be deliberate. One misstep could undo the fragile truce and place Daniel in immediate peril. The mother, Nala, had finished delivering her twins, and the newborns were now nestled against her, nursing with fragile determination. The pride's social dynamics became increasingly visible. The other lionesses rotated in subtle gestures of reassurance, noses brushing in communication, tails flicking gently. The older cubs hovered at a safe distance, their youthful curiosity tempered by instinctual respect for the mother and her offspring. Each glance, each flicker of movement conveyed a language Daniel had only begun to decode, a complex network of social bonds, protective strategies, and silent communication. Minutes passed, then stretched into an hour, and the midday heat intensified. Daniel's body began to protest, thirst, cramped muscles, and the unyielding sun pressing down, but he forced himself to remain still. Shifting even slightly could trigger defensive instincts in the mug, and the last thing he wanted was to break the extraordinary pattern of tolerance. He carefully adjusted his camera, capturing the twins as they struggled weakly to maintain contact with their mother, recording the nuanced behavior of the pride that surrounded them. Every detail, the rise of a tail, a glance exchanged between lionesses, a shift in the male's stance, was critical. These subtle interactions held insight into a social intelligence rarely observed in the wild. At one point, the dominant male rose from his resting position, stretching his massive frame in a movement that radiated power and authority. Daniel's pulse quickened as the lion padded several steps closer, the heat of his breath rolling faintly across the clearing. But instead of a threatening approach, the male settled into the shade of another acacia tree, creating a clear space between Daniel and the rest of the pride. The gesture was astonishing. It was as if the lion had assessed Daniel's vulnerability, acknowledged his need for relief from the sun, and allowed him a small measure of comfort, all without compromising the protection of his family. Daniel moved slowly toward the shade, keeping his camera operational, capturing the male's behavior as if it were a separate narrative within the same unfolding story. His mind raced, analyzing every micro-expression and posture. Could the lion recognize him as the same observer who had monitored the pride for weeks? Was this a form of acknowledgement? A primitive form of mutual understanding? Questions tumbled through his thoughts, but he dared not voice them aloud. Any sound could shatter the delicate equilibrium that had allowed him to witness such unprecedented behavior. From his vantage point, he observed subtle ritualistic interactions among the lionesses. They approached Nala in rotation, pressing their noses to her side, briefly touching the newborns before retreating to the protective perimeter. Each action was deliberate, careful, and highly coordinated. Daniel realized that this was not random behavior. The pride operated as a single unit, balancing vigilance with nurturing instincts. Even the male's occasional soft vocalizations, low chuffs, and subtle rumbling seemed to signal communication rather than aggression, an auditory thread weaving the group together in harmony. The newborn twins, fragile and trembling, responded to their mother's guidance with instinctive energy. Their weak mooing calls echoed faintly across the clearing, carried by the dry air, yet the pride's attention remained laser-focused. Daniel adjusted his lens to capture each fleeting moment, the squirming paws, the tiny mouths seeking warmth, the protective nudges of adult lionesses. It was a study in survival, social cohesion, and the power of instinctual knowledge passed down through generations. Every observation brought a profound awareness of how life persisted in the harshest of conditions and how intelligence, social and emotional, manifested in non-human species. Daniel's own physical limits soon became apparent. His water supply was critically low, and the relentless sun made him feel exposed despite the male's strategic shading. Yet he remained, balancing his need for relief with the careful observation required. He whispered updates into his radio to the research team, explaining not only the progress of the birth, but also the unprecedented tolerance exhibited by the male lion. His voice was low, cautious, but filled with awe. "The male appears to understand my presence," he murmured. "He's maintaining boundaries, offering shade, and allowing me to observe without aggression. This contradicts everything we know about lion behavior near newborns." As hours passed, Daniel noticed the gradual integration of the twins into the pride's social rhythm. The older cubs began tentative approaches, nudging softly at the newborns before retreating at a warning glance from the adults. Each interaction provided insight into teaching and learning behaviors within the pride. The mother remained central, orchestrating the social environment, ensuring safety, nutrition, and guidance. Every step, glance, and vocalization was deliberate, revealing a layer of intelligence often underestimated in wildlife studies. The male's vigilance never waned. From his shaded perch, he observed Daniel with a calm, measured gaze, occasionally rising to adjust his position, but never encroaching. Daniel interpreted these movements as an unspoken dialogue, a negotiation of space and intent. He understood that the pride recognized him as non-threatening, a rarity in human-lion interactions, particularly during such vulnerable moments. His mind raced with implications. Could this understanding be replicated, studied, or leveraged for conservation efforts? Or was this a unique, ephemeral phenomenon, born of trust, patience, and weeks of careful observation? By late afternoon, the Savannah took on a warmer amber hue. The twins had gained strength, nursing more vigorously, their bodies beginning to display the subtle spots that would fade into adult tawny coats. Nala rested momentarily, her head raised to scan the surroundings, while the other lionesses maintained their semicircle, ever vigilant but calm. Daniel, exhausted and dehydrated, moved cautiously, shifting slightly to relieve cramps while maintaining eye contact with the male. The predator's gaze remained steady, almost approving, as if sanctioning his careful movements. It was in this moment Daniel realized that he had become part of a delicate balance. Not a participant, not a threat, but a witness allowed entry into a profoundly intimate event. The lion pride demonstrated a level of discernment that challenged human assumptions, recognizing the observer's harmless intent while protecting the newborns with unwavering diligence. The twins' first day of life was unfolding not in secret, hidden away from danger, but in a remarkable act of tolerance, cooperation, and social intelligence. By the time Daniel allowed himself a slow exhale, he understood that what he had witnessed went beyond the simple miracle of birth. It was a lesson in coexistence, a revelation about the possibilities of human-animal understanding, and a testament to the intricate social dynamics of apex predators. Every glance, every protective gesture, and every subtle interaction revealed a complexity and awareness that defied previous assumptions about lion behavior. As the sun dipped lower, casting elongated shadows across the clearing, Daniel adjusted his position once more. Still capturing footage, still recording observations, still immersed in a rare and extraordinary intersection of life, instinct, and understanding. This was not merely documentation. It was a living testament to the intelligence, resilience, and social sophistication of one of the Savannah's most formidable species. The distant rumble of an approaching vehicle reached Daniel's ears, faint but unmistakable. The Savannah, previously dominated by the quiet hum of insects and the subtle sounds of the pride, now carried the vibrating echo of human machinery. The male lion immediately tensed, muscles rippling under his tawny coat, as the entire pride's attention shifted toward the approaching threat. Nala moved instinctively, curling her newborn twins closer beneath her body, while the other lionesses adjusted their positions, creating a tighter semicircle of protection. Daniel's pulse quickened. He reached slowly for his radio, keeping one hand on his camera, and whispered into it, "Matthews to approaching vehicle. Stop and maintain distance. Pride is alert and protective. Repeat, maintain distance." Moments later, a voice crackled back. It was Amina Naula, leading the research team. "Nagula here. We're stopping 500 meters out. Are you safe, Daniel?" Her words carried concern, but also awe. Daniel assessed his resources. Water was critically low, his legs were cramped from crouching hours in the sun, and the male lion remained a constant, watchful presence between him and the approaching vehicle. "Affirmative," he responded softly. "We need to proceed cautiously. Any sudden movement could provoke the pride." From the corner of his eye, Daniel noticed subtle shifts in the male lion's posture. The predator moved slightly forward, not in aggression, but to assert his dominance over the space between Daniel and the approaching humans. Every instinct in Daniel's body screamed that he was still at risk, but the lion's measured behavior suggested recognition of intent. The animals were not attacking, they were negotiating, on their own terms, the presence of the new intruders. It was an unprecedented level of awareness, both terrifying and humbling. The research team remained visible only as faint silhouettes through the heat haze, their engines idling to avoid startling the pride. Daniel had to calculate every step of his retreat, aware that even a single misstep could trigger a defensive response. He began moving slowly toward the prearranged rendezvous point, camera and equipment held close, every motion deliberate. The male lion followed his movements with eyes that seemed to study not just the ranger's body, but his intent. Daniel felt as though he were part of a silent negotiation, each measured movement a line of communication in a language neither species spoke aloud. Kip Choi, the head ranger, approached from the north on foot, moving slowly, deliberately, and without sudden gestures. Daniel's relief was tempered by caution. Even with backup, one false movement could jeopardize both his safety and the delicate trust the pride had established. As he approached Kip, the male lion remained stationary, standing as a barrier between the two humans and the mother with her newborns. The air was thick with anticipation, each heartbeat echoing in Daniel's ears. "Crazy, man," Kip whispered, his voice a mixture of awe and admonition. "In 27 years, I've never seen lions allow humans this close to newborns." Daniel nodded, still focused, keeping his gaze on the male. "I know," he admitted softly. "It's as if they accepted me. The male is still watching us. We proceed slowly." Kip mirrored his movements, and together they inched forward, each step calculated, each pause deliberate. The sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the savannah. But Daniel remained locked in the negotiation, aware that the male's tolerance was a privilege, not a guarantee. Once they reached the predetermined point, Daniel and Kip prepared to continue toward the vehicle. The Pride remained alert, the male's massive frame cutting a protective silhouette against the golden backdrop. Nala's eyes flicked toward them briefly, then returned to her twins, who were now beginning to explore their immediate surroundings under maternal supervision. The other lionesses held position, occasionally glancing at the retreating humans, but never breaking their protective formation. Daniel realized that even in departure, the Pride was teaching him a lesson in patience, observation, and respect. As they walked, Daniel could not help but reflect on the paradoxical nature of the situation. He had entered this clearing fully aware of the danger, yet had been allowed a level of pragmata that defied conventional wisdom about lion behavior. It was clear that the Pride's actions were not simply instinct. They were a combination of recognition, discernment, and a nuanced understanding of the environment. Daniel wondered if the male lion, through observation over weeks, had learned to interpret his presence as non-threatening, or if this tolerance was a rare, inexplicable gift from nature itself. By the time they reached the Land Rover, Daniel's legs were unsteady, his body fatigued from hours of stillness and controlled movement. Nala greeted him with a canteen of water, the relief almost physical as he took the first measured sips. "Your footage is remarkable, Daniel," she said softly, eyes wide with wonder. "The birth itself is rare, but the Pride's behavior, allowing a human observer such proximity, is extraordinary." Daniel nodded, still absorbing the enormity of what had occurred. "They could have attacked at any moment," he admitted quietly. "But they protected me. The male established boundaries, watched over me, and even seemed aware of my need for shade." The drive back to base was quiet, each person lost in their thoughts, replaying the day's events. Daniel stared out at the savannah, the golden grass rippling in the wind, reflecting on the rare intersection of danger, trust, and observation he had just experienced. The research team's footage, combined with his meticulous documentation, would become invaluable in understanding not only birth behavior in lions, but also their capacity for discernment and nuanced social intelligence. Once back at camp, the team began preliminary analysis of the footage. Each frame captured a delicate balance of trust, protection, and social coordination. Daniel knew that what he had witnessed would challenge conventional understanding of predator-human interactions and potentially inform future conservation strategies. The Guardian Pride, as they were already being called, demonstrated a level of social sophistication that was both humbling and inspiring. Over the next several days, Daniel and the team returned to the site from the safety of their vehicles, maintaining proper distance while observing the Pride's continued interactions. The twins thrived, integrating into the social structure of the Pride under Nala's meticulous care and the watchful eyes of the adults. The male continued to monitor the surrounding area, his vigilance unbroken yet calm, demonstrating a rare and unprecedented level of tolerance for the presence of humans. Daniel often found himself reflecting on the lessons learned during the hours of close observation. Trust in the wild was not demanded, it was earned, and even then it could be fragile and fleeting. The Pride had allowed him into their intimate circle of life, granting him a rare privilege. Yet the boundaries had been clear, unspoken, and non-negotiable. He understood that his presence was tolerated not as a right, but as a temporary gift, a fleeting insight into the intelligence and social complexity of one of the world's most formidable predators. In the quiet moments of reflection, Daniel realized the broader implications of his experience. The interactions had demonstrated that coexistence between humans and apex predators, though rare and fraught with risk, was possible under conditions of respect, observation, and patience. It was a lesson not only in wildlife management, but in understanding the intelligence, discernment, and social capacity of animals that had long been underestimated. The savannah was a realm of life and death, yet within that harsh reality, moments of extraordinary connection and mutual respect could emerge, leaving indelible impressions on all who bore witness. As night fell over the Mara North Conservancy, Daniel reviewed the footage once more. The twins, the semicircle of protective lionesses, and the calm vigilance of the male formed a tableau that challenged assumptions and inspired awe. It was clear that what he had witnessed would shape not only scientific understanding, but his own perspective on the delicate balance between humans and nature. The guardian pride had allowed him into their world, and in doing so had offered lessons far beyond the lens of a camera. 6 months had passed since the extraordinary morning when Daniel Matthews had witnessed the birth of the lion twins. The Mara North Conservancy, now under the warm embrace of the early morning sun, seemed unchanged on the surface. Yet every inch of grass, every stretch of horizon held memories of that unparalleled event. Daniel adjusted his Land Rover along a familiar dirt track, his gaze scanning the vast golden expanse with the same attentiveness that had guided him for decades. The twins had grown significantly, now playful juveniles, their spotted coats slowly fading into the tawny color of the pride's adults. Daniel's heart swelled with a mix of pride, awe, and nostalgia as he recognized familiar shapes in the distance. The dominant male approached with deliberate, graceful steps, mane catching the morning light, radiating authority and confidence. Daniel slowed the vehicle, allowing the lion to halt a few meters from the path. The predator's gaze met his with the same steady, unwavering intensity from that unforgettable day. It was a greeting, a recognition, an acknowledgement of a bond forged through patience, observation, and respect. "Hello, old friend," Daniel murmured, voice low and reverent. The lion's gaze lingered, measuring, confirming, before he turned and rejoined his family, a silent affirmation that trust could endure the passage of time. From the vantage of the Land Rover, Daniel observed the pride in its full dynamic glory. The mother Nala had matured into a confident matriarch, coordinating play, feeding, and social interaction among her offspring. The twin cubs, now juveniles, navigated the complexities of pride life under her vigilant guidance. The other lionesses interacted with precision and care, a seamless rotation of support, protection, and teaching. Even the older cubs, previously hesitant around the twins, engaged in gentle play, demonstrating a social integration that reflected the pride's remarkable cohesion. Daniel reflected on the months of research and observation that had followed the birth. The initial footage had sparked international interest, with scientists and conservationists analyzing the unprecedented tolerance exhibited by the male lion and the structured, nurturing behavior of the entire pride. The data challenged long-held assumptions about predator behavior and human interaction in the wild, particularly regarding the proximity of apex predators to humans during vulnerable events such as birth. Daniel understood that the story of the guardian pride had far-reaching implications, not only for wildlife research, but also for conservation strategies emphasizing respect, patience, and observation over intrusion. The day was alive with movement. Juvenile cubs chased each other through the tall grass, rolling and tumbling, their joyous energy a testament to the successful integration into the pride. Daniel's camera captured every playful pounce, every cautious sniff, and every tentative roar as the young lions tested boundaries and strength. The male lion, now fully grown and commanding, patrolled the periphery, his presence both a warning and a reassurance, a constant reminder that while the savannah offered freedom, it demanded respect. The delicate interplay of dominance, protection, and social learning fascinated Daniel, revealing layers of intelligence, adaptability, and emotional awareness that went far beyond instinctual survival. Daniel paused to take notes in his journal, careful to record observations without disturbing the animals. Each behavior, each gesture, offered insight into the intricate mechanisms of pride life. He marveled at the way the mother lion coordinated the twins' interactions with the older cubs, allowing supervised engagement while ensuring the juvenile's safety. The lioness's rotations, subtle communications, and vigilant positioning created an almost ceremonial structure of protection. Daniel understood that the events of that first day, the birth, the male's tolerance, the structured semicircle, had set the foundation for the social stability he now observed. As he reviewed the footage from earlier months, Daniel noted subtle behavioral consistencies. The male lion often placed himself strategically, not only between the pride and external threats, but also in positions that maintained awareness of Daniel's presence during fieldwork. The predator's behavior suggested recognition, a level of discernment that bordered on empathy. It was a humbling realization. The animals were neither wild caricatures nor unpredictable machines. They were intelligent beings capable of evaluating risk, understanding intent, and maintaining complex social networks. By midday, Daniel parked the Land Rover at a respectful distance and allowed himself to observe without lenses or cameras. He drank in the sight of the pride moving through the golden grass, twins darting between protective adults, practicing hunting gestures on small birds and insects, exploring the bounds of their environment with curiosity and courage. The scene was a living laboratory, a testament to nature's resilience and the efficacy of non-intrusive observation. Daniel understood that his role had shifted from witness to participant in the broader conservation effort, ensuring that the pride could thrive without human interference while documenting lessons that would inform the scientific community for years to come. The male lion approached the vehicle once more, halting at a safe distance. His gaze locked with Daniel's, steady and unwavering, carrying an unspoken acknowledgement of the shared history between them. The moment was fleeting, yet profound, an intimate understanding between species that rarely, if ever, occurred in the wild. Daniel whispered softly, "We've seen so much together," a gesture of gratitude and recognition. The lion lingered for several heartbeats, then turned and padded back to his family, his steps deliberate and measured, radiating authority tempered by a unique acceptance of human presence. As afternoon deepened, the savannah bathed in a warm golden light. Daniel reflected on the lessons of the past 6 months. Observation without interference had allowed the pride to flourish, the twins to survive a period in the wild where mortality rates were notoriously high, and the research team to gather invaluable data on lion behavior. The male's tolerance, the mother's meticulous care, and the social cohesion of the pride underscored the profound intelligence and adaptability of apex predators. Daniel's thoughts drifted beyond science. He considered the delicate balance required to maintain trust between humans and wildlife. Respect, patience, and awareness were the keys, and he realized that these principles applied not only in the field, but in life itself. The guardian pride had offered him a window into their world, and he had learned to navigate it without arrogance, without interference, relying instead on observation, caution, and empathy. It was a rare gift, a convergence of preparation, experience, and respect for the natural order. By late afternoon, Daniel packed his equipment, preparing to leave the site while ensuring minimal disturbance. The twins played close to their mother, occasionally glancing at the departing vehicle with curious eyes. The male lion positioned himself strategically, maintaining vigilance yet allowing Daniel to retreat safely. It was a final, subtle negotiation of space, a confirmation that the trust established months ago remained intact. As he drove back along the rutted track toward the research base, Daniel's mind replayed the countless moments of awe, tension, and wonder. He thought of the first cries of the newborn twins, the semicircle of protective adults, and the steady gaze of the male lion that had watched over him for hours. Each memory was etched indelibly, a permanent testament to the extraordinary experience he had been granted. The guardian pride continued to thrive, their story becoming a cornerstone of research, conservation efforts, and public fascination. Daniel's documentation, footage, notes, and photographs challenged assumptions, illustrating the capacity of apex predators for discernment, cooperation, and nuanced social behavior. The twins' survival, their integration into pride life, and the male lion's unprecedented tolerance underscored the delicate balance achievable between humans and wild animals when approached with respect and understanding. Months later, Daniel returned one last time for direct observation. The pride had moved across the savannah, but the family structure remained intact. The twins, now confident and energetic, played with the older cubs, practicing hunting and social behaviors critical for their survival. Daniel watched silently, understanding that the pride's lessons extended far beyond the savannah itself. They had shown him the potential for coexistence, the intelligence embedded in instinct, and the profound significance of patience and observation. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of crimson and gold, Daniel took one final glance at the pride. The male lion paused, gazed steady, before turning back to his family. The twins tumbled after their mother, playful and curious, their survival a testament to resilience, guidance, and the rare opportunity afforded by weeks of careful observation. Daniel whispered into the wind, "Thank you," acknowledging a bond that transcended words, species, and time. The pride disappeared into the golden expanse, leaving Daniel with memories, lessons, and gratitude. The story of the guardian pride, the twins, the tolerant male, the cohesive family, would live on in research, conservation, and his heart forever. He understood that the wild was not merely a place of danger, but a realm of intelligence, subtle communication, and moments of extraordinary connection. And he knew he would carry the lessons of coexistence, respect, and observation for the rest of his life.